While in Norway, Martin and his friends stumbled upon hidden treasure inside a remote mountain cabin. But this discovery triggered something sinister. A battalion of Nazi zombies, led by the fearsome Colonel Herzog, emerged to reclaim what was theirs. One by one, the undead pursued and slaughtered the group. Martin was the only one to make it out alive, though not without a cost. He had to amputate his own arm to stop a zombie infection. In a desperate attempt to end the nightmare, Martin returned the treasure to the undead, hoping it would appease them. He ran to his car, ready to escape at last, but just as he thought he was free, he realized a single coin remained in his pocket. That was enough. Herzog suddenly appeared at the window, shattering the glass to grab him. More zombies swarmed the vehicle. Martin struggled to reach the car keys while fighting them off. He managed to kick one off and even headbutted Herzog, finally managing to start the car. As he drove off, Herzog clung to the window while the rest of the zombies fell away. One unfortunate zombie caught his intestines on broken glass, getting dragged as the car sped off. Still clinging to life, Herzog continued to attack Martin inside the moving car. But fate intervened. A truck appeared on the road and slammed into Herzog, severing his arm, which landed inside Martin's car. Thinking it was finally over, Martin tossed the remaining coin out the window in relief. Meanwhile, the truck driver checked on Herzog's body, unaware of the danger. When he attempted CPR, Herzog bit his tongue clean off. As the horrified driver reeled back, the other zombies descended upon him, finishing the job. Herzog calmly retrieved the coin, placed it back in the treasure chest, and ordered his troops to hide it once again. Before leaving, he noticed the Talvik fish logo on the truck, sparking a flood of old memories. Later, an exhausted Martin began to nod off while driving. In an effort to stay awake, he turned on the radio, but the dull documentary playing only made him sleepier. He lost control of the car, which crashed and tumbled down a hill. When Martin regained consciousness, he found himself in a hospital bed, handcuffed and surrounded by police. They didn't buy his story about Nazi zombies, instead accusing him of murdering his friends. The doctor informed him that his severed arm had been recovered and reattached, but Martin quickly realized with horror that it wasn't his own.
What have you done? What have you done?
It was Herzog's arm. Panic set in as the arm began moving on its own, breaking the handcuffs and shoving a police officer aside. Before anyone could react, the arm seized a scalpel and fatally stabbed the doctor, and Martin could do nothing to stop it. A second police officer rushes in to intervene, but the Nazi zombie grabs him by the neck and slams him against the table. Martin continues to plead, insisting it wasn't him, as security pins him to the bed and a nurse sedates him. Meanwhile, in a quiet home nestled in the Norwegian mountains, a man reads the newspaper in peace, until something suddenly hits the pages. Looking down, he's horrified to find his wife's severed head. Moments later, Herzog enters the room and brutally kills him with a hammer. A zombie doctor arrives soon after, bringing Martin's severed arm. He places it against Herzog's arm stump, and the zombie powers quickly fuse the limb to Herzog. That night, the zombie army marches to the cemetery where their fallen comrades were buried. Herzog attempts to revive them by injecting energy into the graves, but nothing happens. The doctor explains that the bodies are far too old, now just dust, and they'll need fresh corpses. At that moment, a priest emerges from the chapel and is paralyzed by fear at the sight of Herzog. As he tries to flee, he trips and falls, giving Herzog the chance to catch him. With blood now dripping from the eyes of the figures in the stained glass, Herzog strikes the priest with the chalice and transforms him into one of the undead. Back at the hospital, Martin wakes from a vision of the zombie invasion. He's restrained to the bed, and the cop on duty is asleep, ignoring his cries for help. Suddenly, a boy named Bobby appears. An American tourist and self-proclaimed member of the zombie squad, Bobby is fascinated by Martin's zombie-like arm and has been taking pictures of it. He tells Martin he sent the photos to his team back in the US. Martin insists that more zombies are coming and begs Bobby to release him. As soon as the restraints are off and Martin stands, his zombie arm lashes out on its own, hurling Bobby through the window. In a panic, Martin rushes outside and finds the boy lifeless. He tries to perform CPR, but his undead arm crushes Bobby's chest in the process. Just then, the officer wakes up and spots Martin holding the boy's organs. Martin flees, but the zombie arm grabs a nearby car and won't let him run. Instead, it rips off the metal logo from the car and flings it with lethal precision, killing the cop. As another officer approaches, Martin breaks the car window, climbs in, and speeds off. A few moments later, Bobby's phone rings from inside the car. Martin answers. It's Daniel, the leader of the zombie squad, calling to check on Bobby. Martin explains that a zombie killed the boy and gives him a full account of Herzog's growing undead army. Daniel promises to head to Norway with his team, instructing Martin to figure out what the zombies are after in the meantime. Once the call ends, Daniel briefs his teammates, Monica and Blake, on their new mission. Although hesitant at first, concerned about the legitimacy of the threat and the risks of going overseas unprepared, the group is ultimately convinced. After all, this is the moment they've been waiting for their whole lives. The next morning at the local police station, Chief Gunga is notified about Martin's escape. Though the higher-ups demand extra personnel at every station, Gunga complains. His department doesn't have the budget for that. Meanwhile, the zombie squad touches down in Norway and heads straight to a hardware store, gathering tools and makeshift weapons in preparation for the battle ahead. Martin, now on the run, stops to change into fresh clothes he finds in his car before heading into a World War II museum. On his way in, he accidentally bumps into a black man, and the zombie arm instinctively tries to attack. Martin manages to stop it just in time. At a nearby newsstand, he sees his own face on the front page. Curious and concerned, he reads the article and discovers that the country believes he is responsible for the deaths of his friends. Inside the museum, the receptionist, Glenn, is also reading the same article. He panics upon recognizing Martin as the supposed killer, prompting Martin to restrain him using his powerful zombie arm. Forced to cooperate, Glenn shares what he knows about Herzog, a former close associate of Hitler. Back in the war, Herzog's forces had arrived in Norway, but their massive warship was bombed by the English in Talvik. In retaliation, Hitler ordered Herzog to destroy Talvik, but before the mission could be completed, the locals wiped out Herzog's army. Martin quickly realizes that the resurrected zombies are now seeking to finish that long-abandoned mission. As Martin examines a map to locate Talvik, screams from outside catch his attention. He looks out the window to see tourists being slaughtered by zombies in brutal ways. In a gruesome twist, the zombies use human intestines to siphon fuel from a bus and power up the museum's tank. Once every tourist is dead, Herzog uses his necromantic powers to resurrect them into his growing zombie army. Disgusted, Glenn vomits. Martin quickly drags him to hide among the museum statues, posing as part of the display. The zombies storm in and begin wrecking exhibits, searching for Nazi relics. Herzog takes the map and one of the zombies sniffs around Martin and Glenn, but doesn't detect them. Once the undead army leaves, the two emerge from hiding, only to be attacked by a few lingering zombified tourists. Martin uses his enhanced arm to scalp a woman and hurl her at a car, then smashes a man's skull against a bus and rips the heart out of another. After the battle, Martin gently closes the eyes of a dead man, unaware that his arm is activating. The man suddenly reanimates, startling Martin, who instinctively kills him again. Realizing that his arm contains Herzog's power, Martin touches the body once more, this time reviving the man under his control. Just then, an axe flies through the air and kills the zombie again. It's Daniel and his team. Daniel is thrilled with his kill and poses for a photo beside the corpse while Monica throws up at the sight. Daniel explains they found Martin by tracking Bobby's phone. Impressed by Martin's new power, Daniel suggests they build an army of their own. He tells them about Lieutenant Stavrin of the Soviet army, whose troops were wiped out by Herzog. Their remains should still be buried nearby. The plan is set. Martin, Daniel, and their new zombie companion will locate the Soviet graves and revive them, while Glenn, Monica, and Blake work to delay Herzog's advance. Meanwhile, Herzog's forces have commandeered the museum's tank and are cutting through the forest, destroying everything in their path. Reaching a nearby village, they show no mercy, Children playing in backyards are run over, civilians are slaughtered, and gruesome acts follow one after another. A woman is tossed from a window only to be crushed under Herzog's tank. A girl abandons her wheelchair-bound mother in a desperate escape attempt. Civilians are impaled, choked with intestines, and even mothers with babies are targeted by tank fire. By the time Officer Gunga and his team arrive at the museum, it's deserted except for corpses. With no forensics unit available, they resort to using security footage, which shows Martin grabbing Glenn, leading Gunga to believe Martin is the true murderer. Elsewhere, Glenn and the girls track Herzog's army and formulate a plan to slow them down using the nearby swamps. Glenn lures some zombies by throwing a rock and shouting insults, prompting Herzog to dispatch part of his army after him. Using his knowledge of the terrain, Glenn leads them into the swamp. When a group gets stuck, the girls toss bombs to blow them up. Glenn narrowly escapes being grabbed by stripping off his jacket, and after regrouping, they finish off the last wave with their final explosive. Furious, Herzog orders retaliation. The remaining zombies open fire, forcing the trio to flee amidst a hail of bullets. After a few blasts, Herzog sees only smoke and assumes they're dead, continuing his march toward Talvik. In the meantime, Martin's group travels toward the burial site of the Soviet soldiers. Their vehicle gets stuck in the mud, and to gain traction, they sacrifice their zombie assistant by running over him, only for Martin to bring him back to life afterward without hesitation. Back at the station, Gunga learns that special forces won't be arriving to help. Determined to prove himself, he decides he and his limited team will take down Martin on their own. Finally, Martin and his crew reach the location where the Soviet army perished. Digging up each grave would take too long, but Martin's arm starts to pulse on its own. A surge of power erupts as his zombie assistant writhes in pain. The energy wave radiates through the ground. And soon, zombified Russian soldiers rise from their graves. Lieutenant Stavarin approaches Martin and, to everyone's shock, bows and calls him Master. As dawn breaks, Herzog and his undead army arrive at Talvik, only to find Daniel and Martin already waiting for them. The duo reveals that they've successfully evacuated the town's civilians just in time for Stavarin and his troops to show up, though still outnumbered by the sheer size of Herzog's forces. Realizing he holds the advantage, Herzog wastes no time and commands his army to charge. What follows is a brutal clash, with zombies tearing into one another. In the chaos, Stavarin proves himself an unstoppable force, cutting down enemies with ease as he pushes toward Herzog's tank. Just then, Gunga and his fellow officers arrive, but Herzog sends the tank after them. Panicked, the cops try to flee, but poor parking traps their cars. Only Gunga and a few manage to escape before the tank crushes the rest. Back on the battlefield, the long-awaited showdown begins. Stavarin versus Herzog. Stavarin gains the upper hand early, hurling Herzog into a building, but Herzog narrowly avoids a crushing blow. Meanwhile, the twisted Nazi doctor continues reviving fallen soldiers, stuffing them with hay and patching missing limbs with random tools. As Daniel and Martin assist the Russians, Daniel breaks off to track the tank's movement. When he's ambushed by zombies, his training kicks in. He dispatches them swiftly with his hammers. Even the priest's surprise attack is stopped by the loyal zombie assistant, who protects his master. Gunga and the surviving officers take shelter in a nearby house, witnessing Martin go full-on zombie slayer, ripping out intestines, electrocuting enemies on power lines, and fighting with raw fury. Just when one zombie almost catches Martin off guard, Glenn and the girls arrive in time, finishing it off with a shovel. The duel between Stavarin and Herzog intensifies. Just as Stavarin prepares the final blow, a soldier sneaks in and strikes him with an axe. Herzog quickly grabs a pickaxe and crushes Stavarin's skull. With the Russians now clearly losing, Monica urges Martin to focus on taking down Herzog, the puppet master behind it all. Martin charges and tackles Herzog, sending them crashing through a house wall. A savage brawl follows, with Herzog dominating and tossing Martin around like a ragdoll. Martin grabs kitchen tools to fight back, but Herzog gets hold of him and burns his face on the stove. Outside, Glenn and the girls are overwhelmed. Just as Glenn is about to make a heartfelt confession, a zombie takes him out. Inside the tank, Daniel fights the zombie drivers. Though he holds his ground, one of them eventually pins him and attempts to stab him. Meanwhile, Herzog continues brutalizing Martin, now choking the life out of him. But with the tank's drivers distracted, it spirals out of control and crashes into the house, scooping both men up. The zombie assistant finishes off the priest, but is promptly flattened by the tank. Daniel regains the upper hand, killing the zombie driver by hammering a bullet into its skull. On top of the tank, Martin and Herzog face off again. This time, Martin dominates, beating Herzog relentlessly, until he falls off the tank just as Daniel brings it to a stop. Herzog approaches Martin for a final blow, but Daniel fires the tank's cannon, obliterating Herzog's head. Instantly, every German zombie collapses mid-attack, lifeless once more. With the battle over, the zombie squad says their goodbyes. Gunga and his men step outside, staring at the sea of corpses they'll now have to clean up, one body at a time. Later, Martin visits the grave of his girlfriend. He digs her up and uses his powers to bring her back. The two share a passionate kiss in the car, unaware they're being watched from the shadows by the zombie assistant, still very much alive. Back in Talvik, the Nazi doctor stumbles upon Herzog's severed head, and its eyes suddenly open.